Hannah Gutierrez-Reed had a dual role on set, armorer, and she was also the assistant prop master for the film. One of the things her attorney has said is that she was hired for 2 positions on the film and therefore was stretched in an inappropriate way. Did she raise any of those concerns with you?
No, I assume that everyone who's shooting a lower budget film is stretched, myself included. And I got no complaints from her.
What's that?
Sorry. Didn't they have complaints about safety? Like previously leading into this whole incident?
Yeah, that's going to come up. That's going to come up in the video.
Oh, it's going to come up? Okay.
Yeah, it's going to come up. You'll hear about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The prop department. I'm not sitting there when I'm getting dressed and ready to go do a scene saying, oh my God, the prop woman seemed very harried today.
Harried.
I didn't get a sense of that from any of the people on the film. The first time I heard that there was any problem with anybody in the crew of the film was when Luber said, well, we have some issues here.
Lane Looper, the first camera assistant, would email production managers a resignation letter later that night, citing safety concerns. Quote, during the filming of gunfights on this job, things are often played very fast and loose. So far, there have been 2 accidental weapons discharges. He also wrote about concerns about reasonable rest and housing for local crew with long commutes to the set.
So
now, that's damning. That's damning.
That's pretty damning. You're on
notice,
man.
Because he's talking about multiple accidental firings of the guns during while on set. So that goes to, is it reasonable for Alec to be assuming that the gun is empty given the incidents that have happened before this point? Personally, I don't think so. I don't think that's very reasonable at all.
I don't know. It'll depend. It depends on the situation, because this is a gunfighting movie. So if people are handing you guns and it's like, is it his job that when someone hands him a gun and says this gun is safe, this gun is totally safe, to stop, open the gun up, check to make sure it's safe, close it back up, and then go forward? Is that what was expected? Because if that's what's expected, then yeah, you got him. But if that wasn't expected, if the person who's handing him a gun, if that was their job to make sure that gun was safe before handing it to him, then I think you don't got him.
So there's there have been multiple people that are firearms experts that have worked in that capacity on film sets that have gone. I know of at least one that has gone on TV in multiple channels that has said that is exactly what they are supposed to be doing, is having the actor check it before they actually go. Like, I check it in front of you, you check it in front of me. And anything less than that is unreasonable.
Okay.
You know what I find kind of troubling about in moments like this, and this kind of like translates to other things that come up in the media. I'm going to try to be like vague about this, but specifically when someone gets in trouble, they try to point the blame on one single person. And I'm not sure what I mean, forgive me, because I haven't really been following this too closely, but I just can't help but wonder, who from like the leadership hierarchy of this particular film set, like how many other people are going to be responsible as well. And that's just my only other the only other question I have about this in this particular moment, where you had these other trials where it's always fallen, come down on one person, where it's like, what about these other people?
Yeah. So there are definitely ways in which the various, because there are a number of production companies that are involved in this film. And it's totally possible for multiple production companies to be brought in on some kind of charges, or at the very least civil liability, because of the systems that are in place that are meant to keep everybody safe. So if people were not following policies, they were not following industry standards, those are all reasons why there could be some kind of liability, criminal or civil, more easily civil. Yeah,
because that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking civil. To even talk about civil, I think it's a misnomer, because we got civil in spades, right? Yeah. Somebody's gonna have to pay. This is obviously negligence. But but we're talking about the criminal liability specifically with Baldwin, and I think this is where it gets more dicey, because again, if there's been hundreds of shootings on this thing, right? They've been using these guns for whatever, a week or however long they've been doing it, and if every time somebody's handed him a cold gun, it's a cold gun, hand it to him, and he does his thing, and there's been no problem, and that's the procedure. and this time it was a live gun, then it's just going to just to say, well, he should have done something else. I understand that sounds good to say, but if their procedures in place was that didn't happen, then we can be imposing standards that weren't the standards at the time for, that were reasonable for them on that set. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. What were the standards on the set at the time? And it sounds like the standards on the set at the time was one person checks it, tells you the gun is cold, and then hands you the gun, and then you do whatever you want. Now, I'm not saying that's a good policy, but again, maybe that was their policy on the set at the time. And if he's following their policies on the set, it's going to be hard to say that he's now criminally liable for following because the policy failed. That failed, and somebody in the chain failed.
Depends how much he was involved in setting the policy, I guess.
Maybe even that. But even that, you still didn't have the point of his intent is relying on someone else. And that's that usually breaks that causation chain. That's what we're talking about, right? What's the causation chain?
Your point is fair. Your point is fair.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, let's get moving.
He quit. Now, the day before that happened, we wrapped. And he came up to me and he said, "Thank you for the position you've taken on behalf of IATSE and the union on social media." I said, "My pleasure."
This photo, posted by Helena, showed the cast and crew in solidarity with IATSE, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, which had been on the verge of a strike. And Alec posted this on Instagram.
And I want to say to the people in IATSE, do what you need to do. You want to go on strike? Go on strike. Because I'll tell you something about the executives. They don't give a about you. He said, because we have some.
You haven't said.
The part that kind of makes me laugh about that, dang it, I did it again. The part that kind of makes me laugh about that is he's one of the executives.
Yeah, that's exactly what made me laugh.
Yeah.
But he's also calling out his peers, supposedly, the people who help, put this together, where it's like, anyways.
Yeah.
Just
You mean
the
other producers?
Yeah. He's just like throwing them on the bus. Yeah. These guys who got me this film gig. Yeah. Screw them. Go to hell, guys.
Yeah.
but one thing too, just imagine how scary these policies are, because they are handing people, guns, and the person who's handling the gun at the end is not checking the guns to see if they're safe. I don't know where in the world you would have any type of policy like that, right? It's just like, what part of the planet are they allowing you to do that? Like everywhere that I know, if somebody's handing you a gun that can fire, you always open it up and check it. It's like insane that this is like even close to being a policy.
Well, and also, so Crash Mondo says that for context, their procedures are known. The gun goes through 4 checks: the armorer, the AD, the guy who handed him the gun, the grip, the cameraman, since they may have some safety risk, and the actor. I don't know. I haven't seen that elsewhere, but if that's true, then I don't know if that procedure means that they should all be in the presence of each other during that procedure or what. But that would play a huge role in this as well. So yeah. Anyhow, let's continue.
They don't give a about you. He said, because we have some issues here. I said, such as? And he said, my men need a better hotel room. There was no mention of safety issues.
He didn't say anything about the accidental discharges on set.
What was that, Nate?
I said no mention of the women either.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
He didn't say anything about anything other. He goes, my men need better hotel rooms. I said, well, we're leaving. We're wrapping. Will you be here tomorrow? He said, yes. Because what I was about to do, which I've done on any number of films and TV projects, was to give more of my salary back to the production to pay for X. And I was about to say to him, let me know what it would be to B&B you guys in a house that's closer to how we can address your problem. I will be happy to contribute to that. The next day they were gone.
So you had no sense from anyone on the set that people had been stretched to the point where safety was compromised?
No. I never heard one word about that. None.
Did he know about the 2 other discharges?
Yeah, that's another question.
If not, how not?
Yeah, and it's I would be very, very curious to hear from that individual that came up to him as well, just to say, hey, so was that the extent of your conversation, or did you also talk about safety? Also, was there an element of talking about the hotel rooms that had to do with safety? Because I know that part of it, the issue, I think, from the complaint having to do with the hotels was not just like they had small hotel rooms. I think it had to do with the fact that that it was so far from set. So that may have been calling into or calling to an issue where people were not getting enough sleep because of how hard they were working and how long they were having to drive in between the beginning and the end of the day. And so they may or may not have been getting enough sleep, which also has a huge issue for safety when you've got all kinds of moving pieces on a set. I don't know.
Still back with, even if the conversation was exactly as he described, which I don't believe for a minute, but even if it was, how did he not know about the other discharges? How's that even a possibility?
Yeah.
It's like, well, he didn't raise any issues with safety. It's like, well, were raises issues of safety raised in your mind from the 2 other discharges? You didn't know about that? How? It's like, so I don't, yeah. How? Because if he gets on the stand and says, well, I didn't know about that, again, it just goes to show his depravity, right? It goes to show. So either he does know about it and he's consciously ignoring it, going to recklessness, or somehow he doesn't know about it, showing he doesn't give a damn, which also goes to his recklessness. So either way, it's like damning.
Yeah.
Make me prosecutor. I'm ready to go. I can make it work either way.
But also, I also love this whole, well, I was about to solve it the next day, but then they didn't show up. But when we had the conversation, I never said anything about that I was going to fix it for them. All he said was, talk to me tomorrow, which, I mean, I can imagine how that conversation probably played out in person in real time, that this guy comes up and says, hey, like, that's great that you were talking about these other union guys elsewhere, but here's an issue that you can actually solve here. We have problems having to do with safety and housing. And then Alec's response is, talk to me tomorrow. That tells me I'm not interested in hearing your complaints. That doesn't say that doesn't convey to me, the listener, that Alec is like, talk to me tomorrow and we'll talk about some solutions. Or
especially in Hollywood, where let's have lunch does not mean let's have lunch.
Yeah.
So usually it means go away forever.
Yeah.
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 And not to mention, I think there's something else you have to take in consideration with this. So, like, again, going back to him being a producer, usually at the end of the day when they're done, wrapping with shooting, the critical, leaders will get together, people who are trying to work things through the issues, or work the day to day, I should say. They'll typically meet and discuss things. Even the whole crew, they'll say, hey, this is what happened, this is when we need people to be here on set the next day. There's almost always a safety brief of some sort. Anytime they have, if you're going to introduce something new, for example, firearms on a day-to-day basis, there's always going to be that safety brief that they give from time to time. And I think I could definitely see them excluding Alec from those meetings where it's like things are just so bougie with these actors, where people are just, oh, it's because they want to be respectful to Alec and his time. They want to say, oh, no, you don't have to be there for this meeting. You can just go, and because it's kind of like you have Alec Baldwin, right, and then you have the regular people working this set, and you can't have him interacting with the regular people by no means at all. So, which is why you have these disconnects between him and this set. But anyway, that's just something to take into consideration.
Quick question, just based on what he's saying. He seems like he said he spoke. So the guy made the complaint. He then talks to the guy and says, "What's the complaint?" And the guy didn't bring up the shootings. He brought up the housing. Is that what he's saying?
That is what he's saying.
Because then because then I think it cuts both ways. Because if the shootings or the accidental discharges were that serious, I'm assuming you could just speak to this guy and ask him, then why didn't he bring that up first, right? Or it may just have been just another piece of the problems, right? The real problem is this, but then we also have these accidental shootings, what I'm also concerned about. So I don't know, when they speak to the guy, hopefully he'll say, yeah, I brought up the shootings, but if he didn't, then it kind of leads him to believe that, was it as big of a problem as we're making it seem now, based on, are we seeing it differently because of the 2020 hindsight, or in that moment, did this guy actually think the shootings were a problem, or was he just adding that in to bolster getting his people better housing?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's why it would be interesting to hear a rebuttal from that guy himself, and his recounting of that conversation.